What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. It is reset day, and I just want to talk about the upcoming changes that are going on right now that are actually happening literally today as the game resets. Some class tuning that's coming through. There's some really big buffs and some nerfs that are coming, which is good. We've been waiting for some of these nerfs, things like Demon Hunter, for like a while, and we're going to see some of them right now. So let me go over them really quickly and talk about some of the implications of them. I've got a bunch of other tabs that I want to get to here. So let's just jump right in. First of all, Demon Hunter is getting a nerf across the board, and that is happening today on reset. So Sigil Flame damage reduced by 10%. That's for Vengeance and for Havoc, and also the healing that Havoc or that Vengeance gets out of that is obviously going down as well because they heal based on their fire damage dealt. So a little bit of a heal nerf there as well. Collective Anger is the one that summons the extra I-Beam dude, the Vengeance if you're Havoc, or Havoc if you're Vengeance. That's going down by 10%. I guess it's particularly the Fell Devastation one, so this is just for Havoc, sorry. The Havoc one that summons going down by 10%. That doesn't seem like that big of a deal to me, but here's some more targeted nerfs for Rage Fire. Damage stored by the Immolation or critical strikes reduced to 30% instead of 35%. Again, it's not really that much. I feel like it should be more. Maybe I'm crazy. A fire inside the talent chance to reset Immolation or reduced by 5%. That feels like completely useless to me. This feels so stupid. Like, if you're trying to reduce the amount that it's proccing, it's got to be at least 10 or 15%, right? Like, going from 30 to 25 is nothing. It's literally nothing. So I'm a little confused by the Demon Hunter changes. Like, this one's good, I guess, but I feel like they need more. I feel like they need a lot more. And maybe I'm just, I don't know. Like, they're literally in every group, in every Mythic Plus thing right now. Either a Vengeance or a Havoc is in every one of these groups. So, like, I don't know. I feel like that tells you something, right? Like, that we should do something about this a little bit more than just a 5 or 10% nerf. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that. I will say that. Even Havoc's even really, really good in the raid. Look at their damage. Like, I don't know. I think this is a bit of a miss to me, but we'll move on. Evoker, Devastation, Pyre, damage going up by 15%. Damage of all spells and abilities by 3%. Devastation's very low on the DPS list for raid. They're way down here. You can see, so that's good. Although Pyre's more of a Mythic Plus thing. So if we look at the Devastation Evoker over here, you can see that in Mythic Plus, they're only really doing like plus 25, plus 26 keys, which is fine. It's not like the plus 29s that we're seeing. But if you look at the list, they're like considered to be near the bottom. Now, that's for the bolstering week. Maybe it's going to change on the tyrannical week. I doubt it. But this is a good buff, I think, for them. Pyre damage is AoE primarily, and then all their abilities up by 3%. We'll see what this does for Devastation Evoker, if it brings up their standings in the raid a little bit, the single target, and also if we can bring up their Mythic Plus ability as well, getting them into the higher keys. Hopefully, we'll see that as well. Now, Preservation Evoker. Just a quick little targeted buff here. Resonating Fear, once again, applies Echo to the first 5 allies hit instead of 3. They're basically saying this was a huge nerf to Mythic Plus, and we didn't mean for that to happen. So we're going to make sure that it works like it does again in Mythic Plus. So there you go. Good buff for them. Mage. Mage right now, if believe it or not, is very low on the rankings for raid. Arcane, Fire, and Frost are all at the bottom there. You can see that. So there's some nerfs you would think targeted towards single target, or buffs, sorry, that need to be single target focused. So Arcane, Blast, and Missiles are both single target buffs. Very, very good. Now, you can argue with things like Touch of the Magi and detonating your damage. It kind of turns into AoE damage, but these are single target buffs. Fire gets Fire Blast, Pyroblast, Fireball. Now, again, these can all turn into Ignite damage, which is going to spread with Phoenix Flames and stuff. So it's like, and then they also buff Flame Strike by 12%. So they're getting a buff across the board. The Fire one is very confusing because if you look on the Mythic Plus boards here, again, this isn't an indication of like every single player, but if we look at the top people pushing the highest keys, you got a Fire Mage, you've got a Fire Mage, you've got a Frost Mage, then you got a Fire Mage, Fire Mage. Another Frost Mage, Fire Mage, Fire Mage. I know it's the same guy. I understand that. I understand, but there's another Fire Mage here. Like, I just feel like there's Fire Mages all over the place in the top 40 groups here. So why, like, I don't know. I just don't understand why they're not getting either a nerf or nothing. Like, why are they getting a buff across the board when other specs, like Ellie Shaman, let's say, which is getting a buff, but, you know, Ellie Shaman should feel a little bit more love, I think. Fire's getting a lot of buffs. Single target, single target, single target, AoE, these all turn into single target with Ignite. Like, I don't get it, man. I'm not really sure why they're getting such a buff when they're represented so well here. Yes, their representation in the raid is very low. I understand that. But in Mythic Plus, they're crushing it. So I'm just a little confused. Frost also getting buffs, and we just saw Frost a bunch of times in the Mythic Plus there as well. Now, again, this is Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Flurry, Glacial Spike. Those are all technically single target, except with the tier set bonus, Glacial Spike is splashing to multiple enemies now. So whatever, you know, it is what it is. But this is technically a single target buff that they're targeting. So hopefully this does help Frost Mage in the raid. I do hope it does that, but I just feel like it's going to tip the scales a little bit on Mage in general being represented so highly in Mythic Plus. That's not going to change, I don't think. Like, I think it's just going to get better for Mage and maybe worse for everybody else. That's just my thought on that. Monk, here we go. Windwalker Monk in desperate need of a buff. They're at the bottom of the raid rankings here. Very, very low. And if you go into Mythic Plus, you look at this, everybody thinks that they're F tier. I think that this is a bit of a misnomer. You can't even see it. My camera's covering it, but they're way at the bottom here. I think that this is a little bit incorrect. I don't actually think they're F tier in Mythic Plus because their AoE damage is actually exceptional. I think most people just don't know how to play them. The reason I believe that is because look at what they're doing. Plus 26 key, plus 26 key, plus 25, plus 26, plus 27 key, plus 26 key. They're doing good keys. They can do it. They can do high-level keys, okay? It's not about that. But I'm glad they're getting buffed. I just want to, you know, represent Windwalker correctly here. Spinning Crane Kick by 20%, Blackout Kick by 10%. That's a single target buff and an AoE buff. Blackout Kick will hit multiple targets if you talent into it. Rising Sun Kick, single target, 8%. Fist of Fury, 8%. That's an AoE buff. Blackout Reinforcement is the tier set bonus, making Blackout Kick hit even harder. Glory of the Dawn is the extra kick from Rising Sun Kick. That's going up more single target. This is a crazy one. Dance of Chi-Ji up by 100%. So when you get the proc, which you're more likely to get now with the current 4-set bonus, right? You're getting that Blackout Reinforcement, but your chance to proc, Dance of Chi-Ji is higher than it was like last season. That's really, really cool to see that. So Spinning Crane Kick by 20% and Dance of Chi-Ji by 100%. That's going to be massive. I bet you we're going to see the rankings here for Windwalker go up to like a plus 27 key, maybe even a plus 28 key. I bet you they're going to climb this week because of these buffs. These are massive Windwalker buffs. Okay, very, very good for them. Now, Mistweaver, unfortunately, 2 weeks in a row, Mistweaver is copping some nerfs. Let's see what this is here. Unison down by 15%. That's actually quite a bit. 15% flat. If you do the actual calculation here, it's actually down about 33% from what it was, right? Between 34. Yeah, it's like 33%-ish. From it was at 50, now it's at 35. That's a 33% nerf directly to that. So Unison might not see as much play anymore, but it's still a very powerful talent. It's that extra beam that you get when you're channeling Soothing Mist, right? So we'll see. I'm going to test this out this week in Mythic Raid. We'll have to see. I'm not going to stop casting Soothing Mist. It's just about whether or not I'm going to take Unison anymore. We'll have to see. Enveloping Breath, that's from your Yulon or your Chi-Ji. Once again, that is down by 10%. I think this also got nerfed last week. So like a double whammy. And then Essence Font down by 8%. That is a pretty big one. Essence Font is definitely one of the biggest heals for Raid. You take Upwelling, you hit Thunder Focus T into your Essence Font. It's got a full Upwelling charge behind it, and it just unloads a crazy amount of healing in a short amount of time. In a lot of my Raid fights that I'm doing, Essence Font is my top 2 heals. So this is going to be a pretty big nerf. Enveloping Breath is also a big nerf, I would say. The Unison one, I wasn't even using Unison. I'm not going to lie. I haven't even really been using it. So this one doesn't affect me as much, but this is a big nerf. I suspect I'm going to be using Unison on like Mythic Farok and Tindril and Farok. So we'll see. But that's pretty big nerfs for Mistweaver. Unfortunate for them. Rat Paladin up by 3% across the board. Oh, they're very low. Never mind. Rat Paladin's way down here in the raid. So representation in the raid is pretty bad. Let's look at them in Mythic Plus. They're doing fairly well in Mythic Plus. They're like B tier. They're doing plus 26s, plus 27s comfortably. So 3% to all their damage is probably fine. I think they're like very mid right now. So this is a fine buff, I think. This is good. I think people were wanting more of a single target buff. We're going to see if this helps them enough in the raid rankings. Again, compare this to all the buffs that Mage just got. It's not even close, right? Like, Mage got a whole bunch of targeted buffs, and they just got, Ret Paladin just got 3% more damage. So I don't really know. I feel like the dev for Mage is always like showing up and doing his homework and like there gets to work on time, and some of these other devs just feels like, I don't know, man, it feels really strange. Like, this is a very strange buff. It's a great buff, but is it going to be enough? We'll have to see. Here's a huge buff. Shadow Priest Psychic Link now up to 25% of the damage instead of 15. Psychic Link started at 40% of your single target damage splashes. Then it went down to 25% of your single target damage splashes. Then it went down to 15%. Now it's back to 25. So I don't even think there is a dev in the building that's working on Shadow Priest. I swear to God, I think there's just some guy who's like, well, the Shadow Priests are really complaining, so we got to do something. So let's just revert the change that we made 6 months or a couple months ago. I don't know. This is like, it's good. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It's a good thing. But I've been talking a lot to Asterial, who's a very, very good Shadow Priest. And I think that him and I actually both agree. I think that Shadow Priest is probably just due for like a rework in some way. Scaling all of your AoE damage off of your single target damage is just you're automatically gonna run into problems, because if you turn one knob, you're turning both knobs, right? If you buff single target damage, it buffs AoE damage, and then it's off the charts. It's out of control. So that's a problem, and you can't save that. You can't. The way that it's designed right now is just, it's not good. It's not gonna work. So I think Shadow is probably due for another rework, even though they've had a rework already in this expansion. I think that we really should go back to probably some of the older iterations of Shadow, like the Insanity Days, or maybe even the Shadow Orbs, the orb, whatever they were called, the orbs that you had. Maybe that's a better way to do it. I don't know. The way it's happening right now, Shadow Priest is a functional class. It's not terrible, but I think it's got some really big problems when it comes to how do you tune it correctly? How do you turn those knobs without breaking everything? I think that's the problem. So, Holy Priest, all healing up by 3%. Prayer of Mending healing up by 15%. That is kind of wild to me. We can see in the raid, Holy Priest is doing fine. They're doing big, big numbers, and they're not a terrible healer when it comes to Amir Drasil. They're right in the, well, they're marked as D tier, but I think that's completely false. We have a Holy Priest who just pumps a bunch of healing. So I feel like this buff is kind of wild, because Palm, Prayer Mending had a really, really big place in the previous tier set, because the tier set bonus was all about Prayer Mending. But the current build that everybody's running is a build that does include a lot of Prayer Mending stuff. Oh, I already had it up there. So look at this here. We've got all the Prayer Mending talents. This is what's being run right now. Prayer Mending has a chance to leave a renew. Prayer Mending does more healing for each bounce remaining. Prayer Mending jumps 2 additional times. So now I feel like all the builds that Holy Priests are running right now are just going to get buffed by this, which is really great. But I don't know if they're going to be overpowered. I don't think they're going to be overpowered, but this is a great buff. Like, Salve, of course, being a massive raid cooldown, just bouncing Prayer Mendings. Now that's going to be 15% stronger. That's really, really good. So Holy is in a really good spot, I think. I don't think they're as bad as like these rankings would tell you. I don't know why it gets ranked the way that it does sometimes, but I think it's in a good spot. Assassination Rogue, all ability and melee auto attack damage down by 3%. I think that's probably fine. You can see in the rankings, Sin Rogue is at the very, 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 very top of the chart, along with Sub Rogue. So it's that single target damage with like King's Bane, right? When the King's Bane comes in, their damage just skyrockets for some reason, and it just goes absolutely crazy. So this is fine. I think that this is obviously a nerf to AoE as well as the single target, but really I think they're looking primarily at the raid stuff and being like, okay, we need to bring them down a couple notches, and I'm fine with that. I don't play Sin Rogue, so I'm sorry for you guys that do, but I think this is fine. Here's a big change right here. Elemental Shaman Earthquake damage up by 50%. This is a huge red flag, right? Whenever the developers in the middle of an expansion buff or nerf something by 50%, it means that whatever state it was in before was utterly broken, right? It was completely and utterly broken. Like, and it was. If you played Elemental Shaman, I've been playing it this season, Earthquake is not even a button that I have encouraged people to press. I've been like, you should actively avoid pressing Earthquake because it is just a bad button. So this is a great change, but I still feel like there's fundamental problems with the way that Earthquake operates. Earthquake takes 7 seconds to do its damage. You know how long that is? And if you're trying to get 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of them down, because they're such a cheap spender, then I feel like it's just not going to work out for you. I really wish that they would rework Earthquake, or at least give us a talent option to rework Earthquake so that it costs more Maelstrom, like 25 more. Instead of it being 50, it's like a 75 like Elemental Blast is. But it does its damage in like 2 seconds or 3 seconds. Or it just does all of its damage instantly and has a really high chance to knock everybody down. Like, I think that would be a better solution for Earthquake, because right now, the 7 seconds, like, mobs are going to get moved around. As soon as a mob is off your Earthquake, you're losing all the damage that it does. Like, it's just kind of frustrating. It's a frustrating thing to try and use correctly, and it did, like, 0 damage. So now it's going to do 50% more of 0, which is hopefully more than 0. We're going to have to wait and see. Yeah, I have hopes for Earthquake, but I'm not holding my breath. That's the bottom line there. Enhancement Shaman Elemental Warding now reduces magic damage taken by 3/6 instead of 2/4%. So slight survivability buff just to enhance. I don't really know why it's just to Enhancement Shaman. My suspicion is that because Resto and Ellie in particular have their... I'm not even Resto so much, but like Ellie Shaman has their primary elemental out all the time. Like Fire Elemental is out all the time, and there's a talent that gives you damage reduction while your elemental is out. Maybe that's why they're trying to combat this for enhance. I don't really know. It's kind of a strange change, not gonna lie. Resto Shaman, great buffs for Resto Shaman. Look at this. Torrent now increases the initial heal of Riptide by 1530 instead of 1020, which is really, really good. So that initial heal of Riptide is massive now. And your tier set bonus is all about Riptide. So really, really cool. I'm glad to see this change. I'm gonna probably have to invest more points into this. Torrent, unfortunately, was like my flex talent. It was the talent that I was taking points out of to invest in other things. But now I'm gonna probably have to put those points back into Torrent, because this is a good little buff here. So I like that. Healing Surge up by 12%. That's great. That's a weird change to me, but I think it's great. Triage Healing is our specialty for Shaman right now, in my opinion. So this is great. And then this is the big one. Healing Stream Totem up by 12%. The build that I am running right now, the passive healing build, it's here, baby. I had somebody in my comments say that they feel like Healing Stream Totem will now become as good as Cloudburst, or maybe even the go-to choice now, because of how good this is. If you combo this, of course, with Living Stream, which makes your Healing Stream tick harder every single time it ticks, I think this is a massive buff, and I'm really excited to keep trying my passive healing build in all pieces of content. We're going to have to see how it goes. Clearly, Blizzard watched my video and made changes immediately. Clearly, that's what happened there. A couple of Warlock changes. Both the Warlocks that are not being used right now got buffed, right? So you can see here, Warlock, this is a demo lock. Demo lock there, demo lock, demo lock. It's the same one, I know. Another demo lock, another demo lock down here. Sorry if I'm saying demo instead of demo, my bad. Ath and Destruction are both getting big buffs to help bring them in line with where demo is at. So that's what's happening there, and I don't know too much about Warlock, but that's a good change. All in all, lots of great changes here. I'm glad Demon Hunter's getting nerfed. I'm glad that Monk is getting buffed big time. Mistweaver got nerfed, which is very sad. Shaman got buffed, which is very good. So we're going to have to see. There's some shifting going around here. We're going to have to see if the Demon Hunter changes really mean anything at all. I suspect they won't. I'm not going to lie. I think Demon Hunter's Havoc is still going to be at the top of the meta. I hope that Mage doesn't start dominating everything again. I'm really, really sick and tired of Mage just always being a good class to play, and other specs in the game like Windwalker get forgotten for like 6 months and finally get a buff. But Mage gets buffed again at the same time when really they're like at the top of the Mythic Plus stuff. I don't really understand that. So I do hope that some of the other devs kind of wake up and smell the roses. Good to see Priest getting a bit of their AoE back. We're going to have to see how good that is in Mythic Plus. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. These changes are all happening right now, this week, right now, December 19th. These changes go live. So get into the game and start trying something out. Definitely get out and try some Windwalker, I would say. That's probably the biggest buff overall. I'm going to be trying some Elemental Shaman once again, and definitely some Resto Shaman. So stay tuned to my stream, twitch.tv/ZukoVibes. Come check me out, and I'll be doing some content over there. Thank you guys so much again for watching. I love you all. I will see you in the next one.